It was September, the beginning of the 1957-58 school year, and the city of Little Rock, Arkansas was in a flurry. 3 years earlier in 1954, the Supreme Court handed down its decision on Brown versus the Board of Education. The court ruled the segregated, separate but equal system of public schooling was unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Arkansas was one of 17 American states that required the segregation of public schools. Although it was meant to be one of the more progressive southern states as far as integration was concerned, the state of Arkansas would leave its mark on civil rights history for its resistance to desegregation at Little Rock. Under the first phase of the Little Rock School Board's Blossom Plan, part of one school in Arkansas's state capital would be integrated. This was Little Rock Central High School. On September 4th, 1957, the day Central High was to be integrated, in a move to placate segregationists, Arkansas Governor Orval Faubus declared a state of emergency and ordered a provisional battalion of Arkansas National Guardsmen to the school. These forces, initially numbering 270 soldiers and airmen, barred entry of the black students, famously known as the Little Rock Nine. The Army had actually been drafting contingency plans to deal with the Little Rock situation as soon as Governor Faubus first called up the Arkansas National Guard. Planners initially doubted the president would deploy active-duty Army troops. However, as a contingency, the 1st Airborne Battle Group, 327th Infantry of the 101st Airborne stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, was put on alert in order to initiate riot control training. The 101st Airborne had just recently been reactivated and was the first division to reorganize in the Army's new pentomic structure, a flawed and short-lived organization that was designed for infantry combat on a nuclear battlefield. Its first use would be quell unrest at Little Rock. The 101st consisted of 5 battle groups, division artillery, and other supporting units. Battle groups were the size of large battalions, and each was to be a self-contained unit with integral support capable of independent operations. They carried the legacy of the infantry regiments that preceded them. The battle group tasked with integrating Little Rock traced its legacy back to the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment, which served with distinction with the 101st Airborne during World War II. Each battle group consisted of a battle group headquarters and headquarters company, 5 rifle companies, and a mortar battery. The contingent deployed to Little Rock would be reinforced with some divisional troops, but only part of its HQ company. The operation would also be supported by the 112th Counterintelligence Corps Group, the 4th Army Provisional Support Company, and a team of chemical specialists equipped with tear gas and vomit gas. There were multiple reasons for why the 101st was chosen for what would be called Operation Arkansas. First, it was ready and air transportable. Second, it was garrisoned at Fort Campbell, which is relatively close to Little Rock and had its own airstrip that allowed the battle group to be airlifted immediately upon the president's order. Third, a regular Army unit was necessary because it was anticipated that up to 35% of Arkansas National Guardsmen wouldn't comply with orders to oppose other state authorities. As demonstrated on the day, there was hesitation from the state's adjutant general in complying with federalization. On September 20th, the court again ordered Faubus to cease his obstruction. The National Guard was withdrawn, with an unruly segregationist mob of 1,000 left to the Little Rock police. This was a common segregationist strategy at the time, because although they could technically comply with court rulings by opening schools to black students, they could subtly resist integration by not controlling anti-integration mobs or protecting said black students. Although the schools were under order to integrate, Central High received no federal support to do so, despite requesting U.S. Marshal assistance. However, following a federal investigation that found that Faubus had no practical basis for his actions, and that he had defied court orders for political reasons, federal action became inevitable. By September 24th, with the situation out of control, the Little Rock Nine under threat, and an urgent plea for federal troops from the Little Rock mayor, President Dwight D. Eisenhower reversed several years of hesitance to enforce court-ordered desegregation. He did so under sections 332, 333, and 334 of Title 10 U.S. Code, which gave the president authority to use federal and state troops to enforce federal authority and order insurgents to peacefully disperse. Fulfilling the president's role as executor of federal law, the Arkansas National Guard was federalized, and elements of the 101st Airborne Division were to be deployed to the beleaguered city. This was the first time since 1867 a state militia or National Guard had been federalized during peacetime. Mass federalization of the entire Guard fixed it in place and took it out of control of Governor Faubus, who had used it previously to defy federal court orders. A portion was also designated to create an alert force in support of the regular Army effort at Little Rock. This included the 1st and 3rd Battalion of the 153rd Infantry Regiment under the command of its regimental headquarters, the 39th Military Police Company, and Company D of the 212th Signal Battalion. As predicted, of the nearly 1,600-strong force, only 1,240 Guardsmen reported in. The execution of Operation Arkansas would go all the way to the top, and this would become the basis for later military responses to domestic disturbances. So Chief of Staff of the Army General Maxwell Taylor assumed direct oversight of the operation. Once deployed, tactical control of the battle group passed from the divisional commander to Major General Edwin G. Walker, Chief of the Arkansas Military District, who would also be in command of other supporting units and the Arkansas National Guard. The Airborne Battle Group was lifted into Little Rock via 2 airlifts and 1 road march. The first airlift completed within the staggering 10 hours of being ordered, while the truck convoy reached Little Rock the following day. They brought their ammunition with them, and the 4th Army would logistically support them from Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. In a move likely meant to prevent more racial violence, 106 of the unit's 114 black paratroopers were left at Camp Robinson in North Little Rock. The remainder manned command post positions out of public view, although contrary to public belief, there were some black soldiers present. Overnight, roadblocks were set up by the 4th Army Military Police surrounding the school. The battle group set up a command post and bivouac on the school's practice field and stadium, while 3 of their 5 rifle companies were placed on the perimeter surrounding the entire school. On the inside, each of the Little Rock 9 were to be escorted from class to class by a paratrooper. From the President's order at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on September 24th to 5 a.m. on September 25th, the battle group was completely deployed. Soldiers were initially equipped with steel helmets, gas masks in case gas munitions were used, and small arms with bayonets affixed. Their rifles were unloaded, although ammunition was kept on school grounds. Soldiers patrolling the inside of the school were armed with billy clubs. On the first day, following an unfounded bomb threat, Army troopers came to the rescue of black bystanders who became targets of segregationists. The Little Rock 9 were driven to school in a station wagon accompanied by jeeps to ensure their safety. When the students arrived, the crowd got more energetic and pressed the Army's line, but were pushed back, with 2 demonstrators receiving minor injuries. The segregationists then dispersed, and the rest of the day was uneventful. Within days, the 327th's mission seemed complete, and the Army presence began to draw down. By the end of that week, off-duty paratroopers were even allowed to attend a football game held at the school. Responsibilities began to shift to the Arkansas National Guard, but a rifle company was kept on campus due to the paratroopers' confident protection of the black students and their effect on their treatment. Out of distrust for the National Guard, and at the request of school administrators, the responsibility of student discipline was shifted to school administration rather than the Guard. However, the reduction in regular Army presence led to a resurgence in targeting of the black students on campus, forcing the National Guard to assign 2 escorts to each student. A deteriorating situation under Guard watch motivated a regular Army rifle company to regain watch over the inside of the school on October 3rd under orders to treat bullies as adult offenders. The rationale was that the school life situation becoming unlivable for black students was a threat to integration. Essentially, this meant that the National Guard was responsible for the outside of the school, while the regular Army was responsible for the inside of the school and the safety of the Little Rock 9 during school hours. However, there was quite the anxiety among Army commanders to withdraw the battle group as quickly as possible. Being a high-readiness airborne unit, remaining on watch at Little Rock ran the risk of significantly degrading their combat readiness. Over the course of the autumn and winter following local elections, which saw a moderate takeover of city government, the paratroopers gradually returned to garrison in Fort Campbell. Unfortunately, the story wasn't over when the paratroopers left. Racist bullying and realized bomb threats continued under the National Guard's watch. After the school year had ended, the Federal 8th Circuit Court of Appeals granted the school board a 2.5-year delay on integration. The The following year, Governor Faubus closed all senior high schools in Little Rock, in an "if I can't have it my way, no one can" approach to segregation. But following a Supreme Court ruling, Little Rock senior high schools were integrated for the 1959-1960 school year. Despite a toxic political situation and long-term issues with regard to race relations, those soldiers of the 327th Infantry committed to Operation Arkansas performed their duties and accomplished their mission of containing the segregationist mob and protecting the Little Rock Nine. The Arkansas National Guard, although criticized by some and not preferred by black students or their parents, were reported as upholding their duties when federalized and performed well given the circumstances. Although some speculated that integration could have been accomplished with a much smaller force, the Army decided to send in an entire battle group so as to exert absolute control of the situation. As Sergeant Major retired Bob Press of the 327th A Company said in a recent interview, "They took us very seriously, and I think if we'd went down there with a company-sized unit, it might not have been taken as seriously as sending in an entire battle group. The necessity of federal troops to get 9 children to class, even if it took another battle group, it would have been worth it."
The President's responsibility is inescapable. In accordance with that responsibility, I have today issued an executive order directing the use of troops under federal authority to aid in the execution of federal law at Little Rock, Arkansas. Our personal opinions about the decision have no bearing on the matter of enforcement. The responsibility and authority of the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution are very clear. Thus, they demonstrated to the world that we are a nation in which laws, not men, are supreme.